yes, it's been a passion of mine since I was a kid. I mean, since I was 9. My father had this incredible collection of Betamaxes. I don't know if you guys know what Betamaxes are.
Old school.
Yeah.
I bet they don't know. Who
Yeah.
knows what Betamax is?
You know what Betamax?
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows what Betamax? Okay. Do you remember VHS?
Yes.
It's before VHS.
Oh.
It was the small tapes. And so he had an amazing knack for collecting things that were bound to be obsolete. I mean, it started with Betamaxes, and then eventually he started collecting Laserdiscs. So basically, as soon as I would go out of my room, where I was in my parents' house, there was these row of cupboards that were full of Betamaxes. And some of the first films that I saw was Risala, The Message, by Mostafa Aqad, Allah yarhamah, God rest his soul, which was a huge inspiration for me. But before that, I saw obviously Star Wars, Jaws, all of those films where I was like, this is amazing. These worlds that they were creating. I want to be the guy who does that. I want to be able to create that stuff. But then after seeing, The Message, I realized it was very possible to do this in our part of the world and also tell our stories in such a grand scale. So that's where I was really inspired. And, we had this Super 8 camera that I used, and then there was this VHS camera, then there was a High 8 camera. So it was all these home video cameras that my parents had that I used to take and make these little home movies with. I'd use my cousins. They mainly revolve around action films or remaking films that existed. So we do Rambo again, we do Indiana Jones again, The Fugitive. I remember my younger brothers, so I have a 5-year younger and then a 10-year younger. So the youngest, when I was 13, he was 3. I'd make baby Batman, baby Bond. This was kind of directing him really seriously, a 3-year-old. So it was something that I was just constantly doing, and even if I couldn't find my friends or my siblings, I would use my toys to do stop motion animation. So I had a lot of Star Wars or G.I. Joe toys growing up, where I discovered how to do stop motion animation by watching. I don't know if any of you guys may have seen Jason and the Juggernauts. There was this really old film.
We're about the same age, so I know the references.
So there was these skeletons that used to come out of the ground, and they would move in a very funny way. And to me, it felt very obvious that the person was stopping and recording the camera, within seconds. Taking frames. Because
Exactly.
this was pre-YouTube and us going online and finding out how to do this stuff. You had to kind of discover it yourself and trial and error. So I started to doing a lot of stop motion animation. I guess my parents realized that this is all I'm going to be doing.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about your family support.
Yeah.
They clearly supported
they
that.
clearly knew that this is Ali's a filmmaker. That's it.
Yeah.
That's what he's going to be doing. I don't know how much they thought this was eventually going to become a career.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah,
If anyone
exactly.
This is the reference.
This is a reference. And there's a scene then where the skeletons come out. So yeah, I mean all that stuff I used to see when I was growing up, and it was very inspiring. So basically, my parents, I guess every birthday or every other birthday, I was very, lucky that they would be getting me the latest video camera.
Yeah.
So
they were supporting you.
yeah,
from
they
the
were
beginning.
totally.
So it was your thing.
It was my thing. But my thing was not just that. It was I guess I was a creative child. My father, he's an architect by trade. My mother has a company which is a very creative company for events and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I was in also a creative household. But I also was able to, because I was in a creative household, I was also able to sketch. I was able to draw. I used to do a lot of drawings when I was a kid. So most of my storyboards I used to draw myself.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was also in this design kind of house, I eventually started to design a lot of things. My father's an architect, and he was, I considered him to be a perfectionist. And so I got very much into the whole creative world. So so it wasn't just filmmaking. So as I got older, I realized that I wanted to start, making a living. I think I was maybe 18, 17 or 16. I think but from the time I was 16, and because my friends were quite older than me and they were all making money. And I was still, getting my pocket money from my parents or whatever, whenever I could. So I decided I want to start working. And since my mother had that company, she had a trade license for interior design. So I started to sketch and design stuff and said, listen, I want to take that license and I want to open a division in the company. And I used to design wedding stages. And the first project was my sister's wedding, my older sister's wedding. I designed it because of here in this part of the world, the weddings are very themed.
Yeah.
I mean, especially in those days. Like now, they're a lot more extravagant. And so she had like a secret garden theme. So I designed the stage, and then I built it with the guys. And after that, that's where I started getting my clients.
I see.
After it started with my sister's wedding. So I did wedding stages for about 2 years, and that I had almost about 30 people working under me at that point. So it was also.
You were only at that point like 18, 19.
Yeah,
years old?
18, 19.
So you were just a kid,
And
really.
I was at the same time I was like, I was making silly money for someone at that age,
Sure.
and there are times where I look back thinking I wish I stuck to it. You know what I mean? Like it was very lucrative. I mean, weddings is very lucrative, but at the same time, so you can imagine it being how stressful dealing with, the bride, the mother of the bride, but it wasn't what I wanted to do.
Okay.
What I wanted to do was film.
Yeah.
So I started to look for film schools because I felt like if I don't stop now, I'm just going to stay doing this because it's just, it was just a really good business. So I realized that I should stop doing the wedding stages because it wasn't really what I wanted to do in life, and I wanted to try and pursue film. So I started to do a lot of research on film schools. I looked at New York, looked at LA, places in Europe. They're all very good, but then I found this one in London, which I said, there's no way I'm going to be able to get into this because it was a master's.
Okay.
And when I graduated from high school, I didn't do my bachelor's. I started working. I set up a division in a company, and I had this, I was working. I had a business. But then I saw what the requirements were, and it was basically you have to critique like a film. You have to submit like a 3-minute script with a storyboard, previous work, like a film that you may have done, and your bachelor's or a lot of work experience.
So you get the comp out of it.
So I basically sent them a portfolio about that thick, right, of all these wedding stages, which I call production design.
Exactly.
Perfect.
They were set design at the end of the day.
So that exposure was useful at the
It
end
was
of the
very
day.
useful. And I got in. So I got to do my master's without a bachelor's.
That's really interesting. That's very rare. I haven't.
It's rare. Yeah.
I mean,
I was very lucky.
Yeah, I've never heard that before.
Yeah. And to me it was a fantastic film school because it got you right in from the beginning. Like learning everything. I mean, from editing on the Steenbeck, on film. We shot, we shot on 16 millimeter, Super 16, 35, recording on analog. Like we really learned. I mean, stuff that you don't do today at all.
Yeah, everything is so digital. Right?
But but we really learned that way.
The old way.
And what's amazing about the school, and what's also interesting, I guess, is that there's about 6 terms, right? And in each term, you have to come together as a team and make a film. Whether the first one was like a silent black and white, and then you do a documentary, and then you do a color with sync sound, and it goes on until the 6th one is the graduation film, your personal graduation film, and what you end up deciding you want to graduate becoming, like whether it's a director, a writer, cinematographer, so forth.
And every term, there was this kind of like this. It became very political, where everybody either wanted to be the director or everybody wanted to be the DOP. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I couldn't care less, because I knew I wanted to be a director.
Yeah.
So why did I want to be a director in film school? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I felt this is the perfect
That's a
opportunity
healthy
for me
attitude. Yeah.
to learn what my crew are going to be doing.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
learn that side of it. Learn sound, be a camera operator, be a key grip, be a gaffer. Get to understand, you know, or have some idea of their kind of background or skill set.
So if
You
you
know?
want to work on your own thing from scratch, you'd have a background from each field.
True, but also appreciate my crew when I'm on a film set.
Yeah, true.
You know what I mean? Like and also kind of understand that maybe that is capable. You know, if you do not go through it, you're not gonna know. You know what I mean? So that's what I did. At one term I was editing. I did sound one time. I did production design. I did you know, the lighting, the grip, operating, DOP. So I did all of that. And then when it got to my graduation film, I had to. In fact, actually, my graduation film poster posted up, like just earlier. I had to direct. I had to do what I was doing, which was direct. And Under the Sun, believe it or not, I did it. I think it was in 2003, if I'm not mistaken. Was the first Emirati film to be shot on celluloid. I had no idea. Like I had no idea that my graduation film would be the first. But it goes to show you how young and how, you know,
What were the
new.
other Emirati films were shot on? What?
On video.
Oh, on video.
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
So we shot this on Super 16, and so it was kind of strange and kind of crazy that after the millennium, something like that happened. You know what I mean? And it was just a short graduation film. We were lucky that it won. There was a competition in Abu Dhabi called the Emirates Film Competition. It was like the kind of competition, and I was shocked because when I went to that, that's my brother actually. My brother, so he played a 13-year-old boy in Under the Sun. And in fact, he was actually in my last film, The Worthy, who got his leg chopped off. I don't know if anybody saw
They
that.
were just telling me about that scene.
Yeah, so that's my brother too.
Okay.
So, so I've been using him since he was a baby,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And he doesn't even have a choice. Yeah, so basically, we went to this Emirates Film Competition where I found there was like 300 Emirati films, short films. 300 Emirati short films. So, I mean, some were shot like, you know, terribly, and then there was some decent stuff, you know? And it was shocking because I remember even those days there were so many people interested in film, but nowadays when you go to the festival, you get like 4 or 5 Emirati films. Like, where have all those filmmakers gone? It's something that I always think about. Anyway, so Under the Sun won Best Emirati Film that year. It kind of did its festival round. But that was my graduation film, so I had to kind of get experience. And what I was telling the guys next door is the only experience I could gain in an industry that did not exist was getting onto commercial sets.
Yeah.
So we have a huge commercial industry. And I was lucky enough to get to meet a few of the producers. They obviously kind of respected me that I kind of graduated from film school, so I kind of understood the equipment that I was using.
Talking about, yeah.
So they would let me come on. I started as a runner. I helped out with the electrical department, carrying cables, taking it to set. The grip department, they were building like a one commercial, like a juice commercial in the middle of this, outside on the shore. We had to build like a platform to put the crane on. So there's a lot of stuff. Like I was getting my hands dirty and trying to get on set as much as I could.
But you moved from London to Dubai. This is in Dubai.
London was a 2-year course.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I did my graduation film, I said it had to be done here. So they give you a year to do this graduation film.
Okay.
And also they gave you kind of some budget back towards it, which is nice. But the production house that helped me with, hooking me up with this Super 16, the SR3 ARRI camera, was Filmworks at the time. And Tim Smythe, God rest his soul. And Anthony, his brother, who was head of the film gear. So I got to know them, and they kind of helped me, support me in my graduation film. So the commercial side is that I decided that I had to try and get myself as close to the director as I could, because when you're a runner, you're away from the camera, you're away from everybody, you know? And for me to do that, I had to try and become, an assistant director.
Exactly.
So I started as a third, where, the guy with the megaphone controlling the crowd, far away still from the action. And then second assistant, where you're a bit closer. The crowd, the extras a bit closer. Until I became a first, where it was just me and a director. And I did that for a few commercials. I didn't really, I felt I was good at being a first assistant director, so getting on schedule and so forth. It was great help to do that, because as a director, you need to be on schedule. And you obviously, that's why you have your assistant director. You can't just sit there and go, oh no, let's do take number 74. No, you can't. You have a certain amount of time. You can't go over time, because there's a cost and everything. So you have to appreciate the time. So I think that really helped me as being an AD.
Like you were there, but the responsibility wasn't fully on you. So you kind of felt the sense of being a director while not being a director.
No, as an AD, the responsibility is completely on your shoulders.
Yeah.
Because if you mess up, it's the AD's problem. You know what I mean? That because the director could sit there and wander off, and if the AD is not good enough, he's going to get everyone past the schedule. The ADs has to put everyone in check, all departments, and everyone needs to know what they're doing. You know what I mean? In commercials and even in film, of course. But there are also then, there are some directors that also like to be, come on, let's go. And then they have a more chilled out kind of AD who also knows what he's doing. So everyone has their own kind of way of doing things. And then it reached a point where I need to now do my first commercial. Because I want to start directing commercials. I'm ready. It's been a few years. I'm ready to do my first one. But there's a huge catch-22 situation. Is because for you to have like a commercial, or for you to get hired to do a commercial, you need to have a showreel. Okay. And for you to have a showreel, you need to have shot a commercial.
Yep.
So it's like, what do you do?
It's catch-22. Breaking into any entertainment business. Right?
What do you do? Yeah. So again, because I made more contacts, helping out, I got to some crew. I'm like, listen, I want to do a spec commercial, and they're like, look, we support you. I said, we won't be more than 2 days. So you pay them for their time or whatever it is. You get the equipment at like 90% off. So I managed to raise some money, and I would approach some ad agencies, like the top ad agencies, and I'd go to them. I'm like, hey, my name's Ali. I met a couple of the guys, and I said, listen, if you have any shelved commercials that are not going to be made, that you guys love and think is really cool, like the client couldn't go, let me have a look, because I'm thinking of actually doing one. And they had nothing to lose, right? So there was this one for a very prominent car brand, and it was basically like a heartbeat in the seat of this car. So this car had a kind of like a life of its own. It was a sports car, and it's about how much the heart would beat and how fast this car would go. And I said, you know what, I'll take it. And I remember I was going around with my DOP, who shot Under the Sun with me. He also graduated from London Film School. He also was B camera on City of Life, and he shot A to B. So we've known each other for a long time, and we do a lot of commercials as well together. So we were driving around, and it was literally just behind here. There was a building next to Shedda Tower. That you go into the car park, and as soon as you go up the ramp, the light sensor picks up the car's movement and starts turning on the lights on that level of the car park. And we're like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then we went up to the next one and did it to the next one. So we're like, you know what? I'm putting my own personal money into this for someone else's idea. I think we've just discovered a much cooler idea about this car trying to beat the sensors to the top of the car park.
Yeah, okay, that's a cool idea.
Yeah. So it's trying to get, and the lights are kind of like chasing it as it gets to the top and see who wins. So we went back to the agency and we're like, this is the idea we want to do. And I storyboarded it,
And they're like, yeah, we love it. If you can do it, do it. And I did it. And we managed to sell it to the client, and I made my first commercial.
I see.
And I made a bit of money on top. I did the first opening Etisalat commercial when they rebranded. You know, the branding is like this green kind of like leaf kind of thing. Before it was a really retro kind of ring kind of thing.
That.
That was the old Etisalat logo. So when they rebranded, I did their film. And I started to get into commercials. I did their Ramadan commercials. I did a bunch of stuff with them. And I did that for, and by the way, guys, this is me now, you know, I got married at 23. So I'm trying to support a family. You know, obviously we're thinking about having kids, and I'm in an industry where there's nothing consistent about it. You don't know what's happening tomorrow. Okay? But then again, I was really passionate. This was my dream, and I had a very supporting wife who was like, you know what, this is your dream. And it hit me when I met a friend who's in the industry, the commercial industry, who was a lot older than I was. And I asked him, I said, wouldn't you ever have wanted to make a feature film? He goes, of course. I said, why didn't you? And he's like, commercials. You know, it sucks you in. It's almost like what happened to me if I stuck with wedding stages. It's lucrative, it's quick turnaround, and it's good money. And you feel like you're stuck to doing it because you have to support your family. Filmmaking is the complete opposite. You know, this is what they say. They say doing a commercial is for the rent, and a film is for the soul.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm like, whoa, I can't be that guy. I can't look at myself 30 years from now and it's like, what if I made a film? I'm like, this is why I got into this. Was not commercials.
This is why you left wedding stages.
Yes. Well, wedding stages was, you know, a thing. It was me. It was my dream as a child. This is all I wanted to do. And so I decided to cold turkey, no more commercials. That's it. If it comes to me, and just no, and focus on trying to make a film, which was that one, City of Life.
Right. So you transitioned from doing commercials, and then you.
But I didn't see. This was a 4-year struggle. So I can tell you how we got to there.
I'd love to hear that.
You know. Yeah. So I wanted to make a film, and I knew it had to be about Dubai, because it's a place that I knew best, but I didn't know what. Right. One of the ad guys from the same time that I did that, my spec commercial, he told me, you gotta come down to this place. I have this fascinating idea for a story or a documentary about this Shah Rukh Khan lookalike. Oh. And there was a plane, it's not a plane, there was a place, sorry, in Bar Dubai. It was called, I think it was also called the Bollywood Cafe, which is what I named in my film. And there was a Shah Rukh Khan lookalike that would get up on stage, and it was quite a dodgy place, and he lived in Karama, and we met him afterwards backstage, and we were talking about the concept of him performing, being someone else at night, and then walking the streets of Karama, getting stopped every now and then, as in your average Joe, you know. He said that was a very interesting idea, and I said it was a very interesting idea. But I'm not a documentary filmmaker. I'm purely fiction. I mean, I love producing documentaries, but it's not something that I feel passionate about directing. It's a very specific skill set to be doing documentaries. So I wrote this idea about this Indian lookalike living in Dubai. He was a taxi driver in the daytime. He's trying to be this Bollywood lookalike at night. And it became the whole concept of the Indian side to City of Life, the Indian storyline. And I'm like, if I was going to make a feature film, I can't just make it about an Indian guy. That would not really justify Dubai as a place. So I added the Emirati storyline, which had a lot of influence from my personal life. And then I added the Western storyline,
which is probably the weakest storyline, but it was the last one that was added to kind of really speak about Dubai as this cosmopolitan place.
Right.
And we said we had the film had to be in Arabic, it had to be in Hindi, and it had to be in English. And I was very much inspired by Crash, Paul Haggis's film, Mueros Perros, all of these films, Inurito that he made that about these different stories about people's lives being connected. So I finally, had an idea of a story, but now the script. I till this day I don't consider myself to be a good scriptwriter. I can come up with great ideas and stories, but script writing is a very specific thing. And I remember I found this writer who asked for a lot of money, and I'm like, you know what? I need to do it. There's no other way. I need a script. I sold my car.
Wow. I
sold my car to pay for the first draft.
So this is a truly bootstrapped.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And at the same time that was happening, I was building kind of like this package, because there was no one who was going to fund this. So while I was writing the story, I was thinking of ways. I mean, what's Dubai's? You can't drive down Dubai for 2 minutes without seeing advertising.
True.
Right? There's billboards everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, that's what Dubai knows best, right? They investing in real estate at the time and in advertising. So I started to go to, as well as build in the storyline, but go to like entities to see if they're willing to support this Emirati film, this feature film, and I showed them kind of the names of actors I was looking at, the style I wanted to do it, the budget, and the first person, I think, the first entity that gave me my first $1 million dirham was Dubai Shopping Festival, because I had the storyline that revolved around Dubai Shopping Festival. And obviously, the first guys that were involved came up with the press conference. They were in all the press as that was happening.
Sorry to interrupt. Did you write that storyline in to get the financing, or was that already in there?
There was a whole lottery kind of ticket kind of thing in there. Yeah. So we made it, we built around it a bit more. Yeah. So it would be very clear that when you pick it up, you could see the Dubai Festival logo and things like that. So we helped build things. We integrated stuff in the story, but it was there anyway. Like her walking through the airport, we got Dubai Airport to give us some money. Her stepping into Dubai Duty Free, we got Dubai Duty Free to give us some money.
And I have a feeling, they're not Emirates, the stewardesses. Is that the branding issue?
Emirates didn't give us money.
That's what I was going to say.
No, it's because I wanted money from Emirates.
Right.
And I think Emirates, I can't really speak for what the thought process was, but this was, I spoke with all the marketing those days. It was something very new. So and Emirates, obviously they have a very strong name and branding, and maybe they felt there was a bit of a fear of what the association would be like. But after the film was released, oh my God, Emirates supported me like crazy.
Okay, great.
I mean, I was on the cover of Open Skies and on every seat of every plane. When that film came out, it was #1 on the channel list, City of Life.
They regretted not.
Probably. I mean, but the fact is of how much they supported me. It meant a lot later.
Yeah.
I guess today, if I go to them, maybe it might be a different story. I don't know. But it was, there was this. I was 27, and I'm going out, making these big promises. But before all of that, it was me finding the right producer, and the right producer was Tim Smythe for me, because he was Filmworks, right? And they facilitated films like Syriana and The Kingdom that were shot here, okay? So they had feature film experience. But when they budgeted my script, it was very expensive.
I can imagine.
It was very expensive, especially those days. There were no incentives. I mean, I think Dubai Studio City there was no film commission, there was no Image Nation, no 2454, none of that. Only now do we have incentives, But then they would be able to charge you like 70,000, 80,000 dirhams for a location, which today would be impossible. It's capped at 15K.
Oh wow, okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there was no like rules. Now everything there's a place and a structure. So all in all, I raised about 30% of the film's budget from product placement.
Very clever.
And having that in the bank gave me, there was some confidence for me to speak to an investor.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a government entity that I spoke to. We had to go through so much due diligence with them, and it was obviously very strict, and very understandably so. So they got involved as an investor. The rest were sponsors. And yeah, we managed to raise about, which is crazy if you think about it, because I could make that same film today for a quarter.
Why is that? Why can you make it for a quarter of that?
Because obviously what I know now, and things are a lot more. There's a lot more structures. Things are a lot more cheaper.
Yeah.
And plus things were a lot more expensive those days as well. Everything was shooting on film. We shot on 35. Everything was a lot more expensive. And I managed to get the final. Actually, I got a no because it was exactly when the financial crisis hit. And literally, I think a few days later, I got a call saying, "We're back in." So I managed to raise $7 million to make my first feature film.
That's a significant budget.
Yeah, it's the biggest budget I've ever done.
And it was the first one.
It's the first one.
They approved it after the financial crisis?
Just as it hit, we feared it was no. We heard from the management that it wasn't going to go through because of that, but it went through anyway.
Wow.
And we were lucky, so we managed to shoot the film. It took me all in all 4.5 years to make City of Life.
In terms of all of that?
Everything, from concept.
Yeah, okay. So there was some controversy, I guess, around how realistically you portrayed Dubai in the movie. So can you speak to that? How did your vision of what Dubai was, how did you approach that in terms of an authentic view of Dubai?
I could have been worse, man. I could have talked about crazier stuff, but I wanted to try and scratch the surface of, I guess, controversy. I didn't want to make. We were getting a lot of stick and a lot of heat from Western media about being this artificial place, this soulless place, this plastic fantastic, and I grew up here, so this is home. I'm the guy that walked down those alleyways. I'm the guy that made friends here or did that, and so I wanted to show them a Dubai that even some of the expats that may have lived here for 15 odd years have not seen.
Don't even say it that way.
So yeah. So you got this guy's a huge star now in India. It's amazing, and a very dear friend. So it's basically
great production.
And I wanted to try and get, the Emirati storyline that people may not have seen, but a very specific Emirati storyline. So it's not, stereotypical. It's about this rich kid who's best friends with this poor kid, and that story. Then you have, what could happen, I guess, behind the scenes in the Western side, expat side of Dubai, that life. And then, the Indian side, the Karama, the taxi driver, what they go through. And that was the purpose of this film, was to try and kind of change how people saw Dubai as being this fake, brand new, spanking place without having any rugged reality to it. And I felt it was important to speak about that. But again, it got a lot of heat because people were not used to seeing, the Emiratis on the big silver screen going into a club or drinking alcohol. I was trying to tell them, I'm not making a documentary. This is a story about two guys. I'm not saying they represent all of Emiratis.
Exactly.
It's two messed up guys, and you can see what they go through, the problems they face, how it changes them to become better. I mean, you have to have that kind of a structure in characters. But people couldn't really understand that.
Unfortunately, generalized.
And the thing is, I feel our viewership has become a lot more open-minded since City of Life.
So you changed the culture in a sense.
I hope so. Not a lot of people know this. City of Life was actually banned.
It is currently or was?
Was banned.
Was.
Was banned before its world
And
premiere.
for how long?
several weeks before its world premiere.
Hmm.
And
I love this, by the way. It's got the Burj Khalifa is incomplete.
Incomplete, yeah.
I don't know. It's in the background. It's
It's still under construction. Yeah.
Under construction.
Yeah.
That's pretty great.
I don't like talking about this so much because obviously it's happened in its past and I moved on. But I just want to make people understand of where we have reached, and also the amazing vision we have of our leaders. I got a letter from somewhere very high up saying that they saw the film, and the film cannot be distributed or shown, screened in any shape or form. Banned. And we were just announced that we were going to world premiere in Dubai Film Festival. And the press were all over it. I mean, we shot all over the city. Everybody knew about this. The buzz about this film was very big those days.
And probably you felt that your dream just got shattered.
Oh, no.
You.
My dream got shattered 1,000 times to where I've reached. I mean, even today I woke up thinking, what am I going to do next? You know, it's a constant battle. But it's a very rewarding one, you know, because you feel like you are actually helping make an industry. Mm-hmm. And I want there to be an industry, and I'm sure there are many people that want there to be an industry, and it's very important for a city to have an industry. So, to cut a long story very, very, very short, the film basically, we got that letter. I was away with the producers. We kind of think of kind of like some, you know, a rescue plan. What are we going to do? And I had called one of the actors who had very easy access into the palace. And I gave him the DVD, and I said, you take it to Sheikh Mohammed, and you tell him, because he passed by set, luckily, at one point. His son saw the crash scene. I mean, there's a lot of people, so people were aware about this film. And you take it to Sheikh Mohammed, and you say, the fate of Emirati cinema lies on the decision of what you make on this film.
Nice.
And he says, okay, I'll go do it. And he goes, and apparently it was the King of Bahrain was leaving. And he just as he drove off, he went up to me, he's like, by the way, this is the film. And he said what I said, and he goes, you mean the film's not out, it's not ready? He goes, no, we want you to watch it, we want your blessing. He's like, sure. So this 2 weeks go by, and I'm with my producers, and we're sitting down, we're like, what are we gonna do? The premiere's like around the corner, this is crazy. And I got a call from my friend, and he's screaming down the phone. He's screaming. And he goes, Mabarook! Like he's screaming. I'm like, Khair inshallah, tell me what happened. And he goes, Sheikh Mohammed just called me personally. And he said he saw the film, and he said, I'd say the translation from Arabic to English is, Allah yubayyid wiyukum. How do you say that? And like, God bless you all. And we're proud of what you've done. And he goes, so is it approved? He's like, not only is it approved, if you need any support, we're there.
Cool.
I had a tear drop down my eye. I was like, oh my God. I said my hair standing up now just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like it was such an amazing moment. And I'm like, God bless the leaders we have in their vision. They get it. You know what I mean? I'm like, I knew if he saw it, he would understand. I'm not trying to bring down Dubai.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And if he told me it was banned, I'd shut up. Because it was his city I made the film on. I didn't make it on that employee who worked at the time who gave me that letter. You know what I mean?
Right.
So especially, I'm not going to say no to a film that cost us, millions of dollars and 4 years of my life and just say, you know what, okay, no.
Of course not.
No, there was no chance of that happening. And we were very lucky. The film got released in Dubai Film Festival, standing ovation. It hit theaters. Unfortunately, it got bootlegged and it went out to every internet cafe. And it was like tens of thousands of views from people before it went to the cinema. And we were the highest grossing Arab film in terms of length. I think we were in the cinema for about 9 weeks. Only one film recently, I think, beat us. It was another Emirati film. I don't know. I think it was either
So it was the highest grossing of all time until very recently?
until last year, I think. And that was released in 2009. No, it was released December 2009 at the festival and 2010. So we're looking at a good 6 years. You know, I mean, I look back at that film and I cringe. Like I'm going, oh my God, did you shoot that? Was that did you write that line of dialogue? Because I feel like I've matured as a filmmaker.
Sure,
you know,
yeah.
so you look back on your old stuff and you go, oh my God, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm really proud of what it managed to achieve. Like even when you know, when I thought it was going to be easier doing my second film, it took me another 4 years.
Sure, we'd love to talk about
But
that.
but what happened was that the censorship board became more lenient. You know, things were getting a lot more structured. A lot came out of after City of Life that I'm very proud of.
You mean a lot of films came out after that?
Films, but also people's minds were a lot more open.
Right. You changed the
'Cause like-
zeitgeist. In
Yeah,
other words, the
I think so.
culture. That's
Yeah.
cool.
It
I
was
think
one
so.
of a kind. That's why everyone was really interested in seeing it, because they've never seen something like that before, especially Emiratis. Even some Emiratis don't know what goes behind the scene in the city,
Yeah.
not just the expats.
I think, I mean, like in a couple of years, it's going to be a 10-year anniversary of
City of Life.
City of Life. I don't know. Maybe I'll think about doing part 2.
Cool. Yeah, no, I think it's an awesome concept of showing the real Dubai. How did you get Natalie Dormer?
Well, I managed.
Star power.
I managed to get secure a very cool casting agent who believed in me, believed in the idea. Debbie McWilliams. She did the casting for all of the James Bond movies.
Cool.
So she presented me with a couple of people, and we went back and forth, and I ended up with Alexandra Maria Lara, who's one of the top actresses in Germany. In fact, I don't know if any of you guys seen Geostorm. She was right beside Gerard Butler in that. And then Natalie Dormer, and I had not seen The Tudors then, but people were aware of her. They knew her as Anne Boleyn. So she came and got involved. Jason Fleming, who's a dear friend, we share the same birthday. We got twin boys 2 days apart. I mean, we're really close. Great guy. He got involved. And then, the Bollywood guy, Sono Sood, was introduced by someone who's related to me who had a connection in Bollywood, a Bollywood producer. So we found people that way. So the cast was another challenge on its own.
Jason Fleming and Natalie Dormer are certainly very top level
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Jason
that
is,
are
to me, one of the most underrated actors around. Like this guy, he's a fantastic actor. I mean, he was Brad Pitt's father in Benjamin Button.
That's right. Yeah.
Because City of Life was a drama ensemble. A to B was what we call a dramedy, like it's a drama comedy, and it's a road trip movie. This the coming of age buddy film, and then all of a sudden I got this genre
Action
film
thriller.
that was an action thriller that was very different and it was gory. And I take the approach of my films the same way I believe I took my approach of film school. Is I want to try and tackle every genre as in hope that I could, just to experience what it's like doing that, or see which one I may actually be happy continuing.
Well, this was gladly a success. So
I mean, it was. Yeah, I guess it was a success. Critically, it was a success. Also, for me, it was a success because it did really well in its international world premiere in London. I managed to secure an agent in LA because of it, because it came from LA, the script. It was an American script. And these guys, Peter Safran, who produced The Conjuring, Annabelle, and Steven Schneider, who did, Paranormal Activity and all of that, they had the script. So they were the producers, you know what I mean? And I was purely hired as a director on this. I did not write the story. Right. So
that was your first time you did that?
That was the first time I was hired to direct a feature film, yes. which was great because I didn't have to wait 4 years.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it was great. It was a great experience. We shot it in Bucharest, in Romania. It was, it was an
Did they
amazing
support
experience.
you financially, or was it all on you as well?
Oh no! It was funded, completely funded by Image Nation. Image Nation were the studio. Peter Safran, Steamers Nada produced it. I directed it. We also had an Arab producer with me, my good friend Rami Yassin. So we Arabized the American script. Is what we did.
Yeah.
So that, I got an agent out of it. It did well, I guess, critically. People thought it was something very, very unique. It was like the first post-apocalyptic Arabic film.
Yeah.
I kind of, end up weirdly being in one of those, you get to do the first this, the first that, which is not something I'm trying to, actively try and achieve. It just happens coincidentally. So that was very cool. And so yeah, now, and then basically I reached a point where I got a bit of slack that after City of Life, and including even City of Life, because it was like, it only had like 30% of Emiratiness in it. A to B was about a Syrian, Egyptian, and a Saudi living in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
Because I felt I did an Emirati storyline. Now let me talk about the Arab expats that live here. Wasn't Emirati enough. The Worthy was, it had a group of people, a very pan-Arab film, wasn't Emirati enough. So after this film, Hajwallah or Hajwallah and the Dhabi film, I can start to notice it was doing really well theatrically. Like it was getting a lot of Emirati crowd. I thought I want to do an English language film, but my last film before an English language film would be 100% Emirati film, which I'll do for a very, very low budget.
Wait, so that's your next movie?
That's the movie I was actually supposed to be shooting this year, but the script didn't come back the way we wanted to, so it's gone for rewrites. So I don't know when that's happening, but that's my next film as a director, if not, something else comes up in the interim. But that's definitely something I want to do before I do my first English language film.
So how much do you feel that you have to compromise as a filmmaker because of financial restrictions or business?
Creatively?
I mean, starting creatively, because this is where the process starts.
You always have to compromise. You always have to be open to, especially if you're working in like the studio system, you don't have necessarily have final cut. You have your director's cut that people get to see, and if they like it and you're lucky, that's the cut, right? Which is never the case.
Yeah.
But then what I realize is that compromising becomes very productive and constructive, because you're listening to other people who have great ideas. And you take those ideas on board and you go, I didn't even think about doing it that way. They're also in the business, so they see things that you might not have seen. So you may think you're compromising, but in fact, you're actually benefiting the project.
And it's always like inspiration, and then you can build on that.
And you always end up losing scenes that you really love. Sometimes you have to compromise how you want to shoot something, but sometimes shooting it differently because of time. You realize you've got 6 setups and you only got 2 hours, or 10 setups and you got 2 hours.
The constraints focus you.
You think of it differently. That happened to me several times during A to B. Like I was sitting there in a scene. I don't know if any of you guys have seen A to B, but there's a scene where Fahad al-Batari's character Jay, sees this American girl in the petrol station, and she kind of brushes him off, and then he walks out and says, "I'm gonna take air out of the car's tire, so when she gets in and realizes the tire is flat, she's gonna need help." Was several setups for that all to happen, and we realized we're like, the sun's going down, we don't have time. Like we're literally fighting against the time, so we quickly went out and said, you know what? This is what we're gonna do. We go, is a Steadicam operator available? He's available. We get him measured up, get him suited him up. We did it in one shot. So we took away like 20 setups,
and we shot it in one take. You know, and to me that was one of like the nicest
The
looking
best
scenes.
yeah.
You know, sometimes these things happen.
Sometimes it just works.
Yeah, it works, but sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes you gotta live with it.
So I'm interested in the fact that you established your own production company at such a young age. So what
I had to when I wanted to make City of Life, because to make City of Life, for you to own the piece, you need to have a trade license. So to me, when I made AFM Films, and AFM Films, by the way, was what I used to put, like even on cards when I was a kid. I used to call AFM Films Presents.
Why AFM?
That's my initials, Ali,
Oh,
Faisal,
of course.
Mustafa.
Of course.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm still my
So it was the
Twitter, my
dream.
Instagram, everything's AFM Films. It's stuck. Yeah. And AFM Films has managed to produce 1, 2, 3, 4 films, a few documentaries, many commercials.
Well, you have your 3 films. What's the 4th? You produced.
Oh, we produced, we facilitated for an international film. 2 international films we facilitated for. We did shorts. I produced a documentary for Quincy Jones documentary. 2 documentaries actually. We did one for Stephen Wilshire, a guy who had autism, and he was a savant basically. He would fly around in a helicopter over Dubai, and then come down over 32 hours or 72 hours, and with a pen draw every building, every window, as he saw it from the sky. Like it was insane.
Cool.
So we did a bunch of stuff, and many commercials as well.
So I'm just curious, coming from completely different backgrounds, which is the British and the Emirati, did that give you kind of a bonus point to come up with your ideas? Did it inspire you in any way?
I don't think me being half English gave me ideas. It was that I was lucky enough to be able to travel, maybe. But a lot of people travel, regardless of their nationality.
Yeah.
I grew up here. So my mother was the only English thing in the house. My family were only Marathi, you know? So it was the fact is that I got to, you know, every year we would travel to the UK. It became like second home, because in the summer, we'd stay in our summer house
And that
in
you
the
studied
UK.
there.
And I studied there, and so traveling has opened my mind a lot, you know?
Yeah.
So it's not like my mother was a very free, you know, Western open woman. Yeah, she's probably more devout Muslim than my father was, you know. So it's an interesting thing that people and it's funny because when I'm in the UK they call me the British Emirati filmmaker, and over here they say the Emirati filmmaker. You know what I mean? They try and, like, I don't know,
Take ownership
of something.
Yeah.
I don't. I am, for sure. I'm half English. I mean, there's no doubt in that. But I'm 100% Emirati.